Hi and welcome to NVC Connect. I'm Madi Mihalce and my guest today is Marianne Boss. Marianne is a CNBC certified trainer and a business coach. She's been a freelance trainer since 1991 and a lecturer at the University of Innsbruck since 1994. She has also been actively involved in the Austrian NVC network for quite some years now as a member of the board. All her work focuses on communication and conflict resolution through body language, nonviolent communication, and fun. We invited Marianne to find out more about her journey with nonviolent communication and how to use fun as a joyful way of developing empathy skills. Hello, Marianne. Thank you for accepting our invitation.
Hello, Madi. I'm glad to be with you and with Salil. Thank you for the invitation.
So let's start from the beginning, Marianne. How did you find out about NVC? What were you doing at that time? And also, what was your first reaction to it?
Well, when I found out about NVC, I was already a trainer of communication and body language. This has been my formation after being trained as a business administrative. I studied at university, business administration. So that was already a change to my career. And I learned about Marshall Rosenberg on a training for organization constellations. And Matthias, who was our trainer, he said, well, I got to know a guy who's called Marshall Rosenberg, and I think he's doing some quite interesting stuff about language and so on. And the funny, well, not the funny thing, but the thing was that actually I had chosen Matthias Varga because he had such an attentive way of dealing with participants. I really enjoyed his way of leading people through certain processes of constellation, well, in the constellation work. And so that was actually one thing. I thought, oh, I'd really like to know how to do that, because I'm a bit more an impulsive person and sometimes quite direct. And so I thought that would be something great to achieve. And then we made these two exercises out of his book about feelings. Is this a feeling or is it a judgment? And I think something else. And I was, kind of, how would you say? I was intrigued because I found out that I had always judgments on my mind. And so my husband, he's a big reader, so he got the book right away. And I read it, and yeah, that was how I started it all. I was looking who was a trainer in Austria and found out that there was a woman called Deborah Bellamy. And I went to a convention where people from Germany came to talk about nonviolence. And then, yeah, I started with the training, practice group, more trainings.
In which relationship did you want to apply NVC the most? And also, what was the easiest part to implement from NVC, and what were the challenges for you?
There's many questions at once.
Okay, let's start from the...
Wait a moment. I think I got it, but I just have to kind of organize myself. On one side, I found out that to look at needs was something missing, let's say, in all the methods I had learned so far. So this kind of focus on needs was something I really found helpful, and connect, like feelings and needs, this connection. And I thought, well, that could be really helpful for my trainings. On the other side, going to a training myself, of course, gave me space to think about situations in my life, perhaps when people wouldn't act the way I wanted them to do, or when I got triggered with something or angry with something or so on. So of course it was also to use for my personal development. And I found out that I wasn't really eager about applying these 4 steps while talking, because that sounded quite unnatural to me. And I was afraid people would kind of shake heads, and my family would say, come on, what are you talking about? And what's their way of talking? As they already had me on like you know, they would make fun of me and say, like one day my little daughter, when she asked me, where are you going to? And I think that was even before NBC. I said, I'm going to learn more about how to communicate. Perhaps it was already with NBC. And then she was looking at me and she said, you, Mom, that wouldn't help anyway, would it? So they were kind of making fun of me anyway. But what I really applied it for in my personal life was for self-reflection. So I went to a practice group for quite a long time and kind of also presented my causes and got a lot of empathy there and a lot of clarity. And that's something I really appreciate about NBC. For me, it creates clarity. And if I'm clear about what I want or I don't want or would like to ask other people, then it's so much easier to get what one is asking for, or to at least go into discussion and find out what the other person or what the other persons are willing to contribute. So it helped a lot for clarity in this self-reflection process. What I really tried out from the first moment is to change my listening habits. This I have been practicing now for more than 15 years. And I can say they have improved. Perhaps not always, but they have improved. And the same daughter who once told me, Mom, that doesn't help you anyway, was the one who once gave me the compliment of, yes, you do listen differently than others. And that she was enjoying telling me things because I was listening the way I did. So that was a big, big compliment for me.
Yeah, I agree both with you listening, because I've known you for quite some time now, and we met regularly. And yes, the quality of listening and your presence is very nourishing for me, at least. So I can vouch for that. I'm wondering, when did you decide to apply NVC in your work? Did you do it gradually, or did you shift to just NVC?
Well, first of all, when I learned it myself, when I went to training, I was very curious, who's that guy? So I wanted to get to know Marshall Rosenberg himself, and I went to Switzerland and did a 7 days training there. And I think after that, it still took me, that was in, I think, 2003, and it still took, I would say, 2-3 years before I applied it. I would apply it in my normal trainings a little bit, tiny little bits and bites, but I think it was in 2006 when I started my first training, only focusing on NVC. And I had a good companion helping me, which gave me security. She was an elderly lady, and she had been with NVC for much more time. And so my first workshop I did with her, and after that, yeah, I felt more secure. And then quite a bit of workshops I did with Deborah Bellamy. So I had a companion who was more experienced than I was, and that was helpful.
You say you wanted security. Were there any fears of yours in applying NVC or introducing NVC to people?
I would say it was not especially with NVC. It was more that at that time, I wasn't, or hadn't been a trainer for so many years, and I always had to deal with a kind of fear before starting a training. And I had found a way, like doing body work and dancing, as I had learned in my former trainings, to kind of stabilize myself, or going, you know, for a run in the morning. And still I find it, until this day, I find it more easy to have a companion and you know, face new people together. So I have to admit, although my fear diminished, it's still there if I meet new people and I'm thinking, what are they asking for? Is it enough? Is it what they want? So it's getting better, but it's still, I have to admit, it's still something I have to cope, or I found and I find ways to cope with. And sometimes it's gone totally. And that are moments I enjoy a lot if I don't feel it. But yes, it's part of being a trainer that sometimes you have these fears to deal with.
Yes, that
lies. And perhaps this is something that MVC helps me to acknowledge, and the clown as well. And although you have I know I'm not going to start with the clowning, but it is about accepting what is and also expressing what is.
Yeah,
and so NVC helps me to acknowledge it and to express it, and perhaps even say in front of participants that, well, this is the first moment and I always feel a little bit awkward and a bit fearful. What you are expecting, or I found like methods and little things to start a training so that I feel comfortable and the participants feel comfortable.
Yeah, I'm really curious about the clowning and fun in the workshop, but before that I have other questions. For example, about your certification, what did contribute to your decision to become a certified trainer?
Well, actually, I became a certified trainer quite late in my career because I finished, or I passed my assessment in 2013, because actually it never seemed important. I was so actively involved in the Austrian network, and that was enough for me to deal with us and with my companions and on the board, and doing the trainings and having my family. So for a long time the clients didn't ask for any certificate, and so actually that was not the point. But then I was kind of eager to go on and to get a more deeper insight in NVC. And I didn't want to do it by going to other trainings and doing a training of 2 days here and 3 days there. And I didn't feel really drawn to going to an IIT with 50 people or more. So I was looking for something else. And when I found out that Verena Jäger was being to be an assessor, and I had known her when I went to Switzerland to see Marshall Rosenberg, and I had a really intensive empathy walk with her, talk and walk. So I was intrigued, and I said, well, if Verena is an assessor, I would really like her to be a teacher of mine, a mentor. I would like to go for the assessment and get a deeper insight in this attitude. And NVC tries to kind of teach us or help us to get to. And so that was actually my decision why I went, I think, for the certification. And a little bit because I had been so long in this field, and I kind of felt it also, it was kind of time to actively say, I want to be part of this community of NVC, of this international community of NVC. Yes, and to be also supportive as a member of this community.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have two questions. First, how did your life or routine change when you started the certification process? And also, because you say that you wanted to become a certified trainer and to be part of the community, what changed after that certification when you got the certification?
Now I forgot your first question, I have to admit.
When you started the certification process, yes, and you found out that this this lady from Switzerland is an assessor, and you decided to enter the certification process and her as an assessor, as I understood. How did your routine change when you started that process?
Well, at first it didn't change that much because I didn't do much, and you know, things were just going on, and nothing really big would happen. Because then one makes plans, and then the daily life gets over you. But then thoroughly, I started doing my homework, writing down situations, cases, having appointments with Verena. She kind of did it perhaps a little bit different to other assessors. She was already, I think, around 80 then. And she loved, I think, to connect with people. So she was open to have Skype talks with me. And I would send her, let's say, not a couple of pages, a couple of topics I had worked on. And then she would send me a feedback back. And so we even would have talks. So I think I was very, it was a very intensive relationship actually, going for at least 3 years. And still, it was a learning process, for example, because it was always me asking for an appointment. And in Switzerland, they had a kind of pre-assessment together with a workshop. So we met before we had the assessment for 3 days, and we had 3 assessors then, and they would all give us feedback. And I thought that was a really great possibility to learn, because these 3 ladies were all different in the way where they would focus at. And so I got some feedback there. And I also realized that there was some pain about always being me, the one to, you know, call or ask for an appointment. And so I spoke up, and I'm really happy I did. And then we found a different strategy. And so we had it more like we would make an appointment when we had one for, let's say, 6 weeks time or 8 weeks time or whatever. And that was kind of a more balanced thing of having it both. So that was kind of also dealing, I think, with one of my fears that I would be too much for people, or that they, you know, would overload them perhaps with my need for connection. So that was a very intensive learning process. And I also went to trainings of her, and I could just sit next to her. And that was actually most of my learning was that she was really easy connecting and empathically connecting with people. And me sitting next to her, I found myself quite often that I would have given information or explained something when she was just asking back, what was the person needing? Was it this or that? So she was going more into this empathic way of connecting with people. She was so, it seemed so easily with her, and you would never suspect her to use the 4 steps, you know, while talking, and still she was using them, but in such a natural way and humorous way. So that was, I would say it was also supporting me in my normal life, doing this and intensifying my learning and growing in this NVC attitude. That was my personal. And after the certification, nothing really big changed, because my clients didn't ask for any certificate anyway. And also in the Austrian network, things weren't that much of a difference. But then I went to Germany, and they had a trainer meeting there. And for the first time, they had a certified trainer meeting there. And at first I thought, well, why should I go there? Or is this the right place for me? But then being with all these German certified trainers, and I suddenly felt, oh, I'm a certified trainer too. So that was actually the first time I really felt that it made a difference, because I was part of this community of the German-speaking trainers. I heard about them creating let's say, a new way of going through the certification process in Germany, having these assessor groups and teams actually. And I was so proud of them having, you know, done these steps and to create this new way of getting certified actually. And I really felt being part of them and also having a responsibility for other candidates who want to go this way and who choose to go for certification. So actually that was what changed after I was certified.
I see. And now that you mentioned both your network, the Austrian network, NVC network, and this meeting with certified trainers, some people might envy a little because they might think, oh, these people know NVC and they always speak with NVC and they don't have conflicts. Is it true?
Well, I hope we do have conflicts because conflicts are necessary for growing. It's more the way how we deal with conflicts that I would say makes the difference, but not that there are no conflicts. No, not at all. It's more the way how I think how we try at least to deal with it. And actually, this is why I was thinking now a lot why I have been so actively involved in the Austrian network. And I think as a trainer, you are in a special role. You have participants and sometimes there might be difficulties, but most of the time, at least my participants seem to be quite, you know, nice and not too challenging. But being in the network, yes, this has always been challenging, sometimes more than others. And this is a place where you really, you know, it's walk your talk. And you get triggered, you get sad, you get disappointed. I was sleepless at nights being on our network meetings. And I think other people did so too. So this is real life in a way. And yes, we deal with this, that people think this is not NVC or you should know it better. And of course, I'm sometimes with judgments and then I try to let them go again. But I was always trusting, on the other hand, you know, not all the time, because of course I'm also torn. But then I was always trusting that somebody in this room, all these people sitting next to me, would be able to give empathy to the ones who have the conflict. And that, for example, when I was starting, as I already said, that I'm quite an impulsive and sometimes direct person, of course, it was also me being, you know, saying something to a person and she didn't like what I said, or I didn't like what she said. And so there was, you know, discussions going on, judgments. And I experienced that there were other people in the room who could hear me and who could hear the other person. And I think that's what it's all about. It's not for me that I'm always in the mood for empathy or for, you know, or always able to connect. And that's why we need the community. I'm pretty sure about that this is helpful to have someone else who's able to listen and to help you be understood, but also to translate what perhaps you wanted to express. And that's why I want to focus even more, because I find it still quite a challenge if something happens not to take sides and not to say, well, you are the offender and the other one is the offended. So I think this seems to be quite strongly in our minds that this is the case. And that is something I want to focus in the future. Because very seldom people go to the offender and ask, how come? How are you feeling right now? What happened? Most of the people go to the offended, even in NVC communities. And that is something I experienced myself. And last year at the network meeting, and I got curious, how come? You know, if you were the one who have said something, you after some time would say, well, I would have done it differently. How come people don't come to you, but they go to the offended part?
Yeah.
And I think this also happens in society. So this is something I could imagine could also contribute to another understanding. And as I'm working a lot with teachers and with teachers of kindergarten, I think even there, this is something I want to focus on in my trainings. Do they have, you know, because they always have this kind of, how would you say, these quarrels happening, and so easily they take side for the offended one.
Mm-hmm. Is it from this kindergarten environment that you took the idea of clowning and fun?
No, not really. It was actually that.
How did it came to this?
How did it come? Yeah. Well, in my former training as a body language and communication trainer, our teacher was a clown. He was trained as a clown. He worked as a clown for a long time. And so he always said clowning for him was something very sacred. And so one week, I think, we focused on clowning out of 9 weeks of training. And that was kind of new to me. And still, I had chosen him, or not him, but I had chosen something to do about clowning because I found myself being with my kids as a mother, as a young mother, and sometimes they got really on my nerves and I didn't enjoy being with them. And I thought, well, something's happening. If I chose something that was so important for me and now, you know, it came true and now I don't feel joyful about it, perhaps I have to do something about my joy. And so I went to this teacher and then went on because I liked his way of working with us. We did a lot of playing scenes. We were role playing a lot of body work and dancing. And he had for me, a very humorous way of looking what we had shown on stage. So I could laugh a lot when he was kind of putting together what he saw in my acting. Or let's say if it was my own problem I was role playing, then he would also give a short summary. And I thought, well, that's great. And then I found out about clowning. And the clown is an archetype. And as an archetype, he's or she is typically she just comes out, everything she's or he's acting out comes from the feeling. So they are very present in the moment. They're not in the past, they're not in the future. So a clown is present in the now and acts out what he or she is feeling and needing or wanting. And this gives you a terrible lot of freedom because you can act out whatever you want. And another important I would say, understanding of a clown is that people are responsible for themselves. So if I come near to you as a clown and you don't like it, you will show me. So I will come, you know, might even touch you, stroke your hair, I don't know, touch whatever I think interesting, relying and trusting that you will tell me if you don't like it or not. And then I will react to what you will show me. But I will not go as being polite or this is not how it should be and you shouldn't touch people. You shouldn't do this, so you shouldn't do that. So as we are living all in a society where there are lots of shoulds and should nots, I found it very liberating on a stage, which is a sacred space, I would say, you know, it's not the daily life, to kind of experience what will happen if I try to be in the presence and I try to trust my impulses without judging them.
I see. I see that the clown is honest at all times and very in alignment with his feelings and his curiosity, especially. I'm just wondering, where is the limit between funny enough to make people laugh and serious enough to help people learn, or even not feel uncomfortable?
Oh, most of us, I think, feel uncomfortable first. I haven't met people who would say, well, perhaps there are. I did meet some people who was, as soon as they had the nose on, they seemed to be really comfortable and in their air. But that's not for me. I would say it's a kind of training, and it's not about being funny for others. That's not our approach. Like I didn't say how we came up. It's so I had it in my training, and Deborah Bellamy also had made a training or had done a training in clowning years ago. And one day I think we were talking about, wouldn't that be fun to do something with the clown and to connect it with NVC? And so we started doing a practice group in Vienna at night, once a month, and then after some, or every 2 weeks. And then we also offered a training, a summer clowning training in Austria. And it was more about this, not so much being funny for others, but a training for us to be in the presence and to trust our impulses and to not go on stage with a concept, with an already elaborated concept, but being in the moment and see what comes up and work with that. And this for us is the connection with NVC, because we understand empathy also as the person, I would say you need a certain way of being in the now and in the presence if you want to listen empathically to another person. And it's also necessary to be open, to go with whatever comes, to not judge, to be open, to not have a concept in mind what you think this person should do or should not do. So that was our connection, that it could help us, to practice this attitude, which is helpful if you want to be empathic. And then, of course, it is also helpful in my daily life. So we are not training people to go on stage as professional clowns. That's not our focus. Our focus is to take ordinary people like us and ask them, would you like to just try it out? And as the body, as you need your body, because the clown is not, his world is not the language world. His world is the body world. And the body is different to our language and, what would you say, brain? No, not brain, but what would you say is it? I'm lost in the word now. Well, anyway, as he's nearly or she's not using any words, it comes out all with body language. Mm-hmm. And so you need a lot of exercise to get yourself from the head into the body. And this will, at least that also could help, if you don't go for clowning, but go for body work, because this will, the body's always in the presence. Yeah. The mind can go into the past and into the future, but the body is always in the presence.
Yeah, and that's a concept that most of the people are not familiar with, because we are taught to dress ourselves, especially in the business, because you come from that area of business as a business coach. And I imagine that people are very aware of how they dress, how they move their arms, and how they look. and everything this body language in a business area. And I'm wondering what's their reaction when you go to them and you propose such a process to go more into their body.
Well, they need a warming up, like everybody does, but perhaps a little bit longer. And I think they also need a focus. Why are they invited to do this? And so we sometimes don't start with a clown, but we start with improvisation. And it is also like how we explain it to them, that we say it's about also unknown situation, how to react in unknown situations, in challenging even perhaps situations where you couldn't prepare beforehand. Or for example, like nowadays in business, they are so much more agile. So things are changing much more quickly, so that they are not so, or they kind of, I think the focus has changed, so that you're not so much focusing on structures and procedures anymore. You start to become more flexible, more agile. And so it's, you can't have fixed concepts how to deal with a certain situation. So I think this also is a reason why they are going for these trainings, because they realize that they need another capacity, or to practice another capacity, which is, you know, being in the moment. And of course it's also about authenticity. Like I wouldn't, I never advised my participants to do something they wouldn't find that it's belonging to them. Although if you start using a new, I would say, gesture or something, a louder voice, for example, because you've been speaking quite low normally, this at first never feels comfortable and never feels belonging to you. So this is a way of practicing it, and then at a certain stage it will become normal and belonging to you. Yeah? But I would never advise them to do something that they don't feel comfortable with.
What is something that comes up more often than the rest when you speak with people who seek your support and guidance in this kind of trainings with clowning? Why do people come to this kind of trainings, especially? What do you hear most often?
I think they're longing for some more fun and humor and lightness. I would say lightness. That's for example, when we do it with, we have been doing it now for a couple of years with kindergarten teachers, and they are sometimes managers of institutions. And so this is actually, they want to have a different focus and some more fun, more lightness in their life. And they're, they're curious how they could, whether it could help. And, you know, it's, as you saw and we beforehand, perhaps the ones who are listening to us don't know, but we were trying out to find the best spot where I could sit. I tried out all sorts of different jackets and blouses and pullovers and whatever to wear what would be nice, you know. So of course we are kind of investing to look nice and to be respectable and to be perhaps intelligent. But as soon as you put on a nose like this, it's much more difficult to look respectful.
Yes.
And it's much more difficult to look very intelligent, does it? But what comes up perhaps is that I'm a little bit afraid. Mm-hmm. Or perhaps it comes up that I enjoy being here and having people who are listening to me. They're all listening to me because I'm so important. Yeah, and I have something to say, you know. So you see, things change quite drastically as soon as you have a red nose on.
Yeah, and indeed, when this symbol of a clown appears and is just a ball, a red ball on your nose, it's also comes with a lot of history and a mood also.
Oh, it does. And that's why we always kind of breathe in the clown in or breathe it out again.
Okay.
Because breathing into the clown means that you're stepping out of your human way of doing things. You do it differently. And then you have to be very careful about earrings or stuff that could interest the clown. It's like a little, a little baby or a little child. They are natural clowns normally. So we all have it in us, but we kind of lose it on our way.
How do you think that happens?
Well, I mean, in a way, I'm also happy that they're not all clowns around, but because I'm not quite sure what the world would look like if we were all clowns all the time. I don't know. So I think we learn how to behave in a society and what is wanted, what is not so much wanted. And we also learn to hide our feelings because we're not invited to share our feelings. People still will tell you don't be sad or don't be angry. It's perhaps also has to do with that we are living in a restricted world. So it sometimes not all can be done at the same time. I don't know. I hope that this is changing nowadays, but I'm not so quite sure. Perhaps it always needs these both sides, to have like the accurate one and then, but as we had, it just ended in Austria Carnival. So I think that was also a way of helping people to have at least a couple of weeks where they could be, out of themselves or different to themselves or having fun, dressing up, being someone else. And what I find out is if, without using the clown nose, we once did it in when I was having my training, we said, do everything wrong, try to do it as wrong as possible. And this, funny enough, gives you much more lightness. And quite often we make the experience that if one tries really to do it wrong, he kind of, or she finds a grain in and it's the wisdom actually that comes out. So perhaps it's this, that the clown doesn't want to be successful, doesn't think he needs to be successful. And as you know, a clown is normally always, what's the opposite for being successful? He's failing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? He tries and tries and he keeps on trying, or she keeps on trying and fails. Mm-hmm. And therefore, I think it's quite helpful to remind oneself of this archetype, that this is about us being humans, that we try a lot and we fail and we try again.
What's one tool that people can take with them and I don't know, step into this energy of the clown? A tool, how someone who is listening to us, how they can start having a little bit of a clown in them to be present. Or let me rephrase that. What's one thing you wish people would take and apply in their lives right away when they leave a workshop of yours?
Well, we ask them normally, and they say that some of them will take with them the clown nose, so that it's like an anchor that reminds them, to think about it and to be in the presence. Some say even that they, have a picture that reminds them of what they experienced. I think it is important to experience it first, because then it's at least in your body already has experienced it, and so you can go back to this. But also looking at children, small children, seeing how they are in the world, for me at least, is always a reminder of the clown in daily life. And perhaps what I would say, but this helps also if you don't want to be a clown, is what we do as a preparation to go on stage. In our training, this takes some time, and the person who wants to go up to the stage has a safe space, so nobody can see them or can see him or her, where she can breathe in and out and get connected with herself and get connected to her body and also to the feeling of impulses. And so you are more open for the impulse to come. And this was actually one of my experiences when I came back from a training, and I went to visit a neighbor of mine, an elderly man in the hospital, which I don't have such a friendship or friendly connection with. He was a neighbor, but I thought it would be a good idea to go and visit him. And I was sitting at his bedside, and it was a little bit awkward because we were both very polite. And I was actually on the point of leaving. And suddenly, because probably I had just come from a training, I had this, this impulse of saying, well, he doesn't look so ill. Perhaps he would love to have to go for a walk down the hospital aisles. And in a normal situation, I wouldn't have asked him, no way. But I think because I was still having this experience in me, I said, would you like to go for a walk with me? And he said, yes, he did. And then there were all kinds of awkward situations suddenly, because him being in this kind of hospital pajama, which is open at the back, and having to have a stick with his infusion and so on. So it was actually much more intimate, as you would normally have it with going to visit a neighbor. And we both enjoyed this walk up and down the hospital aisle. And I thought, well, that was when the clown helped me in my daily life, because it was this reminding of where, some kind of sparkling I got and I could use in a really nice and connecting way. And I still think back about on this occasion and think, yeah, that was a way of connecting with someone I wouldn't have connected this way, without.
Yeah, I see it as the clown gave you that courage to go on with an idea that came to you, and usually you might dismiss that idea because it wasn't appropriate enough, and everything that you were taught kicks in and says, no, it's not good, it's not polite, let that man be alone and let him rest. And once you have this courage to ask him just a simple question, and it's a pure request, in my opinion, you could have received a no with the same energy as a yes, which NVC encourages. But also you created this time and space for this connection between you to create, and
yes,
something wonderful came out of it.
Exactly, and that's why I would also see this connection between NVC and clowning, because for me NVC is about this connection to people, and I personally don't always find it easy, and so I'm looking for means that can help me, to connect with all kinds of people. And then it is also about expressing oneself and being sincere. It's not only about listening empathically, but it's also about, speaking up. And I find a lot of fear in people that they are not, you know, they don't dare to speak up. And also I find it in myself. And like just this morning before we had our meeting, my eldest daughter called and she has an appointment for an interview, for a job interview, and she's not feeling well. And she was asking, do you think I can tell them that I'm not really feeling well? And I said, yes. Yeah. Don't do as if nothing is happening. You could say that you're not feeling well, but still this interview is so important for you. So you're here and you try to give your best. I don't know whether that's right or wrong. It's just, I think that's something I appreciate a lot about NVC, and that is also something I'm trying to develop more and more. It's a learning edge, you could say, to be more open and to speak up. And trusting that this is okay. And I have this self-esteem to be self-aware and also self-empowered in a way. This is something NVC also means for me.
Yeah.
And trust also in the mutuality that people will appreciate that you are.
That you are authentic.
Yes, that you're authentic.
Yes. Mm-hmm. What's the best advice you've ever received regarding channeling the clown energy in your trainings?
You mean the advice to what?
Yes.
To how to? What do you mean by channeling? I don't get the question.
To get into the mood of a clown. To step into that energy, to be present and authentic, and to have that courage.
You know, I'm taking singing classes now, and I don't think it's so much different. You need your body to sing, and as a clown, you need your body. And the better you are connected with your whole body, of course, your mind and body, but it is this body exercise that, because we very easily tend to just be in our heads. And when I do process some problem solving thing, people very often are very much in their heads, thinking. So it's about getting more into your body and away from the thinking. That helps. And then take a pause and take in a deep breath and out, and then jump into the clown. Mm-hmm. And it's the same with singing. We do body exercises before I start singing. And it's about also being open, giving what you have to give.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really helpful advice for me, at least, and a good reminder to go into the body more and not staying in the head. I guess this is one of the key elements in staying with NVC.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I would say look for people who are offering. It doesn't have to be NVC people. I mean, you can do all kinds of body work.
Yeah.
But it is about being more self-aware and using what is actually part of us, isn't it? Or what is us? Mm-hmm. One of my teachers said, you're not having a body, you are a body.
Yes, I agree. We are at the end of our interview. Mm-hmm. I have 2 more questions. But first, I would like to know where people can find you, and if you have this, I don't know, an advertisement for your classes somewhere.
Not right now, because we haven't done classes for the public last year, and we haven't planned it for this year. We are kind of re-planning things, so we do it just for institutions who ask us to do it. So the best would be to write me an email if someone is interested.
Okay.
There will be, if we do a training again, it will be on our NVC website, the Austrian NVC website. I don't know, should I say it?
Yes,
Or,
you can say it, and we
well,
will
it's
also put it under the video. We will put all the details and all the links to you, so people will find you. And also, if you will publish something, just send us, and that we will add to the description of the video, and people will see it.
Oh, that would be great. That would be great. Yes,
sure.
Because it is in German. I haven't done it in English yet, because we had German participants so far.
Yes.
But perhaps that's changing.
Yes. Okay. So people will have everything, all the details that we get from you, will have under this video. And
exactly. That would be great. Yes.
My last question is: what is the vision you hold for the world, and the role that NVC could play in it?
I hope for a world where we can deal with conflicts in a way that still enables us to stay connected. Or even if we say goodbye, we say it in a kind of respectful way. And to have more, to have this, I'm also Christian, and perhaps this is what I have to say as last word, is that Marshall Rosenberg also helped me to understand some sayings of the Bible better. And so one is, I translated it, so I hope it's right, that I have come, Jesus said, that I have come that they may have life and they have it abundantly. And I got so much reminded when I heard about Marshall Rosenberg and about his saying that we are in the flow of life, this spirituality which was so important for him. I think this is something NVC is helping me to understand what is meant by it, and that's what I really would like that NVC brings into the world, that we live our life in all its abundance, and that we trust that there is abundance. I think that would be a message for me, that we are not fearful, thinking that there's not enough for everybody. And that's something I also learned from NVC, that there are so many possibilities to fulfill needs, and so many people in the world who can fulfill a need of mine. It hasn't to be my husband or my daughter or my best friend. And so this openness and this trust, I think that's something I think NVC can bring into the world. And the second question was?
It was the role that NVC could play in your vision, but you incorporate.
Yeah, okay. I would say this is actually my vision, that we can live our lives.
Yes, I hope people will have the chance to live such a vision.
We all have the chance, and we do, perhaps not in the full way how it is meant, because this is something to is it to strive for? I'm not quite sure whether that's the word. But I think as long as we live, we are able to start again. Or go on, whatever.
And in this optimistic mood, I will depart from you, Marianne. I'm so thankful you accepted our invitation, and you offered your time and your knowledge and your fun. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for asking me for this interview.
Thank you, Marianne. And thank you for watching. If you liked this interview, give us a thumb up. And also share it with a friend, and be sure to subscribe to our channel. Check the description on this video for links and details, and see you next time. Bye.
See you next time. Bye bye.